What are some things you need to be looking out for when it comes to final grading of a new construction house? Let's talk about it. The guy that does a lot of my dirt work, I have a few people that do great work, but the guy that has done the majority of it did this house. Again, this is a personal house, not a spec like the last couple that he's done for me, but he does a really good job. And I want to kind of talk about some of the things to look for when you're doing final grading. The first and most important thing is you want to make sure that water will always run away from your house. Water is the number one enemy of construction, especially residential new construction. Water, moisture, I'm categorizing it all the same. Moisture brings about things like mold, it brings about things like humidity control, and it brings about foundation issues. It can bring about foundation deterioration, all of these horrible things. So gutters are great. We don't have gutters yet. That's my bad. But we are going to be getting gutters on this house. But even for the time being, before we get gutters, where's our water going to go? That's the number one thing that the person doing your dirt work needs to know. Now, thankfully, there are a couple things you can do even before final grade to prevent having water issues. One of the most cost-effective things you can do at the very first stage of construction to make sure that you don't have any water or drainage issues at your house is when you pick your lot. Now, obviously, we have to pick the lot that is available sometimes. Sometimes we aren't able to get the best lot in the development. Thankfully, since I own all the lots around this house, I was able to get the best lot, and I did pick the best lot. Sorry, everyone else, but it just is. It's the highest point. Everything kind of sheds off of this lot onto other properties. But there are still some things you can do, even if you don't have a great lot. I'm not going to tell a long story about this, but the first spec house I ever built, I got a really good deal on the lot. And at the time, I didn't understand why I was getting a good deal on the lot. But as soon as we started construction, I realized this is why I'm getting a good deal on this lot. It's because it was very sloped. From east to west, I forget, there was probably a 4.5 to 5 foot elevation change just from the house footprint, not the entire lot, just from the far right side of my house to the far left side of my house. There was a 4 to 5 foot elevation change, which is substantial. That's more dirt work, that's more block, that's more fill material. Once your foundation is blocked in, you can go back and reference my earlier videos if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's more everything. It's more brick, it's more all of that stuff, and all that stuff costs money. But one of the best things you can do, and thankfully my foundation guy is good about this, is when you're doing all your site prep, you're getting ready to dig footings, and you're getting ready specifically to lay block, is whatever the minimum amount of block, these are cinder blocks, keep in mind, add 1 course of block to whatever the minimum requirement is. And what I mean by minimum requirement is from your highest point to your lowest point, you have to make those the same. So what your block layers will do to make sure that your foundation and slab ultimately are flat and level is they might use 2 block on this side of the house and 4 block on, I'm doing my best to make this look even, to where there's 4 block here, 2 block here, but the top is level and planes out, if that makes sense. And all of that is due to the surface or the lot upon which you're building. Now, on this particular project, you can't see it now, but if you go back again to my earlier videos, you can see. We went from 3 block to 4.5 block. So that means there was only a 1.5 block elevation variance between the entire footprint of this house, which is a really good thing. It saved me a lot of money on the front end with my foundation, but again, it was because it's a good lot. But the point I'm making is we could have done 2 blocks to 3.5 blocks, but we bumped it up and did 3 blocks at the lowest and 4.5 at the highest. Why did we do that? Because I wanted to make sure that my house set up enough to where no matter what, water would always shed away from it. If you sink your house down low, I've seen it time and time again, the chances of having water up against your foundation are greater. So whatever the minimum requirement due to your lot is for however many course of block you run, add 1. I could have done 2, but I did 3. Did it cost me more? Absolutely it cost me more. Not that much more, but it did cost me more money. But ultimately, It made my final grading, it made my drainage, even without gutters, it made it so much better. And I'm going to show you guys what I mean now. It's hard to tell on camera, but you can obviously see that from the house that way down to the road, everywhere is sloped. And I just want to kind of brag on my dirt guys a little bit. They do a really good job of not only scraping and cleaning up, but they go around with rakes even and make sure that it's right up against the brick, right up against the foundation. And from this perspective, you can probably really see that natural looking smooth slope down to the ditch, to the road. And then the same thing here down to the yard this direction. That little mark on my brick, by the way, is where they're putting my fiber internet. But anyways, he didn't grade my field lines yet. It's been raining a lot. He was scared. He brought a dozer out here that's about 19,000 pounds. He was like, I'm really scared that if I go over that, I'm going to crunch your field lines. So we're going to let that sit a little bit more, and then I'll grade that out with a bucket of my tractor and box blade. But you can see here also, just nice, smooth, cleaned up. He did a little swish right here. You can't really tell on camera, but basically so that water that hits in this area, the higher point, will kind of funnel and end up going off that direction. We're burning some paper and trash out here. And you can really see it right here with my compressor pad and my driveway. You can kind of see how he nice smoothed it off. The other thing is you want to make sure that not only do you want to make sure that they make it to where everything runs away from the house, you want to make sure they're willing to clean up your trash a little bit. They were out here burying bricks and rubble and stuff. And that's really not what I'm paying them for. I mean, it is kind of, but like I appreciate that they're willing to do that, to make sure that when I come out here and when I see what they've done, dozer work wise, that not only is it graded correctly, but it's clean. Because we're kind of to the point in the project where I don't want it to look trashy anymore. Like, we're literally so close to moving in. It's time for this job site to be a little bit cleaner. And they did a really good job of that. They dug a hole, buried a bunch of brick, some shingles and things that I didn't want to burn or couldn't burn. They buried it for me in a spot where it won't ever be a factor. So those are just a few things to keep in mind when you're talking about final grading. Also, make sure they have the right equipment. I have a Kubota tractor, but I'm not out here doing it because I know that Kubota tractor is not capable of doing what I needed to do. Probably could have done this with a skid steer. He likes using a dozer just because he also didn't haul in any material. Here's another thing to keep in mind. If you're getting quotes from dirt guys and they are telling you that they need to bring in dozens upon dozens of loads of fill dirt, topsoil, shell, whatever, I would compare quotes up against other guys. If you are on acreage like I am, there's probably somewhere that they can scrape material from. And that's exactly what he did. The reason why he used a dozer and not a skid steer is he was able to take out some high spots in my yard and use that material in lower spots. You can do that with a skid steer to an extent, but not quite to the extent that he did with the dozer, and not quite as quickly. So make sure that your dirt guy knows, if they can, that it's okay to use material from some higher spots to make this yard look good and to smooth it. And so that's another thing to keep in mind, asking them, is there any natural material out here in other spots in the yard that you could use to clean up around the house and the job site? Because that will save you a crap ton of money. He did all of this, and he only hauled in 2 loads of gravel. And that was for redoing the driveway, which he did a really good job of. All this other dirt around the house he got from other places, which I understand not everybody has that, because not everybody is out on acreage where they can just pull dirt in from other spots. But he was able to, and so that saved me a lot of money. I'll just tell you guys that for this whole job, this whole cleanup, grading, filling around the house, redoing the driveway, scraping everything clean, burying trash, I paid $1,500, which that's a pretty good deal, I'm not going to lie. And that included hauling in 2 loads of gravel. So I'm very appreciative to him. He does a lot of work for us. So I'm sure he kind of gave us a little bit of a deal on it. But again, grateful for him. He did a great job.